Hello, good afternoon, and happy Friday. Welcome to the monthly What's New in AWS live stream presented by Enterprise Support. We have another action-packed episode this month. We're going to cover a few releases across AI, across compute, across database, and serverless this month as well. I might just go ahead and welcome my colleagues in, Graham and Simon. Gents, how are you doing both?
Morning,
I
Matt.
am well. I am cold. Hello, Matt. Hello, Graham.
Happy budget week. You do look cold. You look very cold.
It's Melbourne, mate.
I think I'm the exact opposite. We're still clinging on to t-shirts and shorts here just for another few more days, I think. I don't know how much longer it will last.
Yeah, hopefully the
gotta ask my
double-digit
boss
weather
if I can
doesn't
move.
stop.
Yeah, that's right. But very good. We've got an action-packed episode this month. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you have to talk about, Graham, around AI and ML.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, lots and lots of new announcements for this month. I've got my guest Tom Liu coming online to chat about that.
Awesome. Bit of serverless for you this month, Simon?
That's right. We haven't talked about serverless in a few months, so it'd be good to have Sard on to talk about serverless.
Awesome. Yeah, I think I've got a Lambda release as well in our compute lounge towards the end of the episode. So looking forward to that. All right, how about we kick off? Graham, I might hand over to you, and we'll start with AI ML.
Thanks. Let's bring on Tom Liu, my special guest and artificial intelligence and machine learning specialist. Tom, welcome to the stream again.
Hey, hi, how are you, Graham? Nice to be here again. Hi, everyone.
Thanks. And we've got heaps of announcements to talk about today. We'll probably just focus on a couple, but looking at what's happened over the last couple of weeks, I see we've got a couple of releases for SageMaker. Code Whisperer is now available as an extension in Jupyter Lab and Amazon SageMaker Studio, and a wealth of new releases for Jupyter notebooks around generative AI and scaling ML workloads.
Yeah, indeed. It's very interesting. This is kind of like our contributions to the community and to democratize generative AI on Jupyter community. And Jupyter notebooks being used and super popular especially for data domain, data scientists also. And the most interesting things about that, it's very interactive. You can see the result right away with writing code also. Yeah.
Fantastic. Looking through the list, we've got Amazon SageMaker accelerating local ML code conversion. We've also got a new release in SageMaker to host TensorBoard. The Code Whisperer, I think we're going to have a bit of fun with that later on today, and
for sure.
try some stuff out there because it's a fun service. I mean, who doesn't want AI to start giving you the solution to the questions that you've got? And then the new Jupyter experience as well.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, it's just quickly mention. Want to highlight the two you just talked about. The managed TensorBoard. So it's pretty much for the deep learning with people who are using deep learning frameworks such as TensorFlow or PyTorch. TensorFlow being used and recognized, easy to use, plugin, and help you to check against on your training process and potentially accelerate your training process issue detection. One of the big problems is sort of like overfitting problem, and it has nice UI for helping you understand the whole process look like, detect the problem easier from your end, and manage in a sense that like you don't need to worry about how you're going to host TensorBoard. Like we have the managed services for you. Just plug in and figure out the right source for that right away.
Great. Yeah. So we've done all the heavy lifting and connecting the services. I'm curious, for anyone in the audience, are you using TensorBoard? Is this something that you asked for? Let us know in chat. I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, indeed. And the other one want to talk quickly about, it's the so-called running your local code remotely easily. So pretty much the new feature is on our new SageMaker Python SDK. We provide new decorator, so sort of hooked up with our backend. When you're writing code, you're adding specific annotation and tag or whatever, and you can convert that and specify what kind of machine you choose to run your code at the remote. It's making great flexibility whenever you want to run your code easily in a larger scale distributed environment.
Nice. I remember vaguely using Python decorators. It took a while for me to get used to the concept, but once you get used to it, adding the Python decorator to your functions, it's pretty trivial, and it gives you this access now to additional features there.
Indeed.
How many Python developers have we got online today? I noticed that we've got quite a few people joining us. 94 viewers, Twitch tells me. That's huge.
Wow. Yeah. I didn't have a tab, like a browser tab to view that part. Like, keep us posted, especially the questions.
Absolutely. Well, what shall we focus on, Tom? Have you got something to show for our audience today?
Yeah, indeed, I do. I think it's great. It's great to have a bit of demo today, to have a look at potentially the new announcement of the Jupyter new extension with Whisperer, and also like have a local IDE ready, and I can show some sort of code, but easy to start with though. Yeah,
Great.
let's
Why don't
do.
you get started?
Yeah. I think we may start with a console. I would like to quickly talk about how the integration looks like. And of course, I will cover the Jupyter notebook environment with CoWhisper, and then we can do a bit of demo across on that. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Cool. Thanks for sharing this one. Now, pretty much like as you can see, my screen, you can see a VS Code, and VS Code being very popular. This is a local version, and especially once I install AWS Toolkit here, there is a sort of bunch of services or functions that I can enable, and especially for CoWhisper, it's kind of ready to go. And for a very first time you log in, when you click to like kick it off the auto suggestion or so, it will try to route you into some options, whether you're going to use a free tier or a professional tier or so. Yeah.
Okay. So that's really important to remember, right? You have to resume the auto suggestions. Otherwise, I guess nothing's going to happen and you'll wonder why.
That's right. And especially like with the free tier, it's ready to go. You pretty much just need a AWS Builder ID, and then you can use for free. And with professional tier, you potentially need to have your admins on cloud to enable the service via AWS Identity Center, and so that you can use it. That's kind of the process. On my IDE, I already have the professional tier integrated, ready to go. But before jumping on the IDE, maybe I also want to talk about the Jupyter one, so which is this one. So I've like with Jupyter Lab version 3.60 or something, the new feature is kind of ready. The 3.60 above, I would say. And with these new versions, once you enable the CoWhisper extension, you will have CoWhisper like integrated. And if I click it, then it will prompt me how would I like log in. As you can see, it support like AWS Builder ID. So because I logged in before, if I leading to a new page, it pretty much just automate the whole process. Yeah. Once I hit this page, the process with the VS Code will be quite similar. And I allowed so that my Jupyter Lab environment will be able to have the access.
And just confirming, this is running on your local machine, right? So it's not the managed Jupyter notebooks. This is a local one. So you're not paying for SageMaker today. You're just running this on your local machine.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And like if I create a Jupyter notebook underneath, so for example, up here, so the service integrated with this environment and kind of ready to go. I'm super excited that this feature potentially can make our data scientists or data engineers or even like machine learning engineers' life easier when they are working in an interactive notebook environment. Yeah.
So what does it look like? How do you initiate the commands?
Yeah, so to initiate the command is super straightforward. So pretty much like, for example, if I want to create some sort of functions or I want to write in some code, I may give some sort of command editing. And when I'm doing a command, I would talk about that. For example, I would say upload a file to S3 bucket, for example. And given that I already authenticate and the code whisperer, what I can do is like I'm using a Mac OS also, so I can use option plus C, and it will comes up the prompt like the suggestions, like what should I do now with this format. It will generate the code bit by bit for me. Like for example, when I see this code being prompted as a hint, then what I can do is use the let or write um, uh, error key to change it. But in Jupyter, the environment will be a bit tricky. So what I want to do, I would just accept it right away. And once I accept it, if like I can manually trigger code whisper. For example, I hit option C again, and it will prompt me that, hey, the next step is to, because I'm dealing with S3, the next step is to enable create a S3 client with Boto 3. Again, if I accept it, we will start from here, and option C again, it will comes up, right? This is how
Right.
they
This is
work.
giving you sequential options
Yeah,
for you to then just
yeah,
accept or not,
yeah,
and then you can autocomplete.
yeah.
That's
That's
really fast.
yeah, indeed. And other than that, if I don't like just writing the code right away, I can create function. For example, if I say define a functions and hit option C, it will comes up with the prompt on what's the potential, implementation I can do. Right? For example, this is upload file, and like
So
if
all
I
you did
hit
was
tab,
you started writing the initiator for a Python function, def space,
mm,
and then it gave you the ability to create a function. It's giving you the input parameters as well as the code that
yeah,
is required. Um,
yeah.
great. How does that look? I mean, from my experience, that looks like a valid function, as well as a valid way to use the AWS SDK.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Though, like it can easily help you, like you can use it easily achieve the function implementation, and of course you can tailor a bit per your needs. Like you can tune a bit and maybe do a bit of making the code more readable at your end or so. And with this kind of prompting, you can easily achieve send like doing API call very easily. That's what I would like to say. Yeah, I'm not sure whether our audience are interested to give me some hints, like what prompt or what function they want to do, and we can do a quick, demo.
Let's go to the audience. Does anyone want to give us a prompt to pop in here? Tom, if you want to just prepare, we can just throw any random comments in that you might have. Do you want us to create a DynamoDB table or a Kinesis stream? Maybe put together a database from scratch in RDS? Who's out there today and wants to work through Tom by proxy?
Yeah.
We've got a comment. Elnamis, great for someone like you who can barely code. Let us know what have you thought about doing, Elnamis? Have you got some application you've thought about writing? Have you signed in and used the services before? Do you have any examples or any suggestions for Tom to try out?
Yeah. Just give me some instruction.
Dev KO, AWS transcribe streaming library. How about we, what do you reckon, Tom? Shall we try something to, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. Maybe we can try a bit like text sentiment analysis, and we can ask our audience to send out some, sentence, and we can use the, the code we created here and do a bit of checking. What about this?
Yeah, let's do that. Do you want to create a function for performing some sentiment analysis?
Yes, definitely. Like now I'm switching to VS Code. Like you would just have a bit of look at the Jupyter Lab environment. Now switching to the VS Code is pretty much for fun. Like this is my favorite environment also. All right, so let's do, if I want to do a sentiment analysis on text, I would say do sentiment analysis to a given text, right? So once that's been done again, the way to manually trigger prompt is exactly the same. Like in Mac OS is Option C. So if I hit this one, okay, it will advise me step by step, as you can see. Now, again, to accept the prompt or so, I will just hit tab and I'll just continue. JSON, okay, interesting. I don't think because I have a big experience on this one before, but let's see that what it comes up. And now it's talking about integrating, like declare the comprehend services. It's going to talking to US East one. So for me, I would rather talking to AP sales East 2. No difference. It depends on your, like, it's just a service per the regions or so. Yep. So I have that now controls. Yeah. So I would just accept this one. I love Seattle. Yeah, that's why they use ES East 1. The North Virginia region.
All right. So you've thrown out that command to our comprehend service. It's calling the detect sentiment API.
Yeah. Now tab, I accept it. That's how it look like.
You're going to dump the JSON return value to the print function, which will show up at the, where's that going to show up in the output?
Yeah, in the output. It's just like when I run the program, it will show a, like, of course, I've set up my AWS local credential, and so that it can talk to that. This is the response. And
so
as
my
you can
rapid
see,
JSON reading, we've got a highly positive sentiment here.
Yeah.
99% positive. All right.
Yeah. That's
this
true.
is good. Okay. How about we pass through some different text? One of the original comments from Elnomiss. This is great for someone like me who can barely code. Let's see what comprehend detects sentiment wise from this text. And if anybody else has some text they'd love to run through our comprehend sentiment engine, let us know.
Yep, sure. So I already copy and paste the sentence. Now again, let's make it simple. I just do another run. So the response, as you see, is 200 and sentiment is positive. Let's have a look. It's still positive. Yep.
Yep. A little bit mixed in there, but overwhelmingly positive still. All right. Let's do one more from Sydney Sard. I've got some text I'm just passing through to you, Tom, in chat. This is great for someone like me who can barely. Oh no,
it's still the same. Yeah,
still the same. Oh, I'm failing with my keyboard shortcuts. Apologies. Here we go.
I will not help open up different SDK pages now. Okay, I'm a bit unsure what SDK pages means, but for sure we can run the script. As you can see, still positive, but not like overwhelming positive as we can see here.
That's quite on the fence, actually. There's a bit of negativity in there.
Yeah, it sounds like. So this is kind of the tricky part, but basically what we are doing, we are sending the text content to our service sentiment, comprehend, to do that sentiment analysis. Yeah, sometimes it's a bit tricky though. It may depends on the how the model being trained, and very often sentence can, like, the nature of the sentiment of the sentence can depends on the context. So
yeah.
it can be
Sydney
tricky.
Sards commented that's definitely positive what he wrote. I guess in this case, it's not able to pick up how you said it, right?
That's right.
Couldn't detect the underlying context there.
Yeah.
All right, we had another request to create a DynamoDB table. Like we
Create
originally
DynamoDB
suggested.
table. Okay, interesting. Now I'm going to do that one for you. This is for free because we are using CodeWhisper. Now, create a DynamoDB table. Yeah. So this is the prompt. And what I want to do, I manually initiate CodeWhisper. Let me have a look. Is it? Yeah. Yeah, it's prompting me that there is no existing suggestion or so. Okay, to store a sentiment analysis result. Okay, let's try to do that.
Oh, it's giving you a prompt on what to prompt for. I love that.
Yeah, it tried, because the reason being is like it will taking the existing context, which is from your code, from the existing comments, and as an input, not just beside your the comment you recently put in. And as you see that it start generating code, and earlier I mentioned that you can choose via like using the left right arrow key, like for example, and you can switch on different.
It's going through different iterations. Yeah,
Yeah.
different ways of creating the table. Okay.
Yeah, indeed. And if you are moving your cursor, and you can see like there are total, bear with me, total 5 suggestion or so, and you can use the left right to choose. That's how the UI looks like. But for me, I've just used the tab to accept it, and let's have a look. It's about create a table. Okay, it looks like this one is not complete. Let's see how it goes. So table is so-called sentiment. All right, I hit tab to accept that, and just one by one, and key schema accepted.
Oh, this is great. I always forget how to put together a DynamoDB table from scratch.
Yeah, indeed. I'm pretty much hitting like Option C and tab at the moment. So my finger is super busy. I don't even get a chance to search out doc. But I think it's good enough for me as of now.
Oh, well, we've only got 2 more minutes left, Tom. So let's see if we can push CodeWhisperer to move faster.
Yeah. So this is, yeah. Okay. Bear with me. I will. Bear with me. Okay. Okay. Looks like there is some sort of requirement to define attributes. This one, I haven't created DynamoDB table with both of 3. So bear with me. I try to hit the button quicker then. Maybe I can finish that. Yeah, provision throughput. And on that next hop. Do we have more time to finish this one, or maybe we can park it here? Certainly.
Let's keep going.
Okay.
Let's keep going.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, looks like I've just done the code, but I would like to change this one, text also, and maybe there will be some others, but I would just simply do this.
Yeah, good pick up there.
Yep. And yeah, if I hit run, okay, create table action. Yeah, on my user, I have an DynamoDB access.
We've hit a
So
least permissions issue. All right.
yeah,
Looks good though. Great demo, Tom. Thank you so much for taking us through the Code Whisperer demo here, and a couple of successful demos with comprehend sentiment detection from text. Looks like a really great way to start building functions efficiently and even exploring what you might want to be doing because it's giving you the prompts of what to do next based on what you've already written.
That's right. That's right. Have fun with Code Whisperer, especially for peers working with Jupyter Lab. Cool. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. And thank you, Maya. I'm going to hand over now to my colleague, Simon. He's going to bring on a guest to talk about some serverless new releases. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Graham. Maya, can you bring on Saad as well? Thank you. Hey, Saad.
Hey.
How are you?
Hey, Simon. I'm good. Thank you for bringing me here. And hello to everyone who is watching us.
Yeah, well, it's great to have someone to talk about serverless. We haven't really had someone talk about serverless in quite a while, and I think it's a timely, it's a good time to talk about serverless because of all the chatter on about serverless this past couple of weeks. We've had this Prime Video blog that talks about how they moved from Lambda functions to container. I think. Actually, let's talk about that a little bit, right? So, what are your thoughts about that particular blog and what was said afterwards?
Yeah, sure. And that's a good point where you said that recently there has been a lot of discussion going on about serverless, specifically because AWS Prime Video team launched a blog or released a blog stating what they did with their serverless architecture. So I guess the first thing which we need to understand is that Prime Video's use case has changed over time. They are using a service to analyze their video files quality. And while using that services, they have realized that they were facing scaling and cost issues. Based on that, they went back and redesigned their architecture and moved away from serverless.
Yeah, so I feel like the is my takeaway, but I think there's no one size fit all solutions for architecture, right? It's always up to good engineers to find the best solutions, and we don't really mandate a certain architectural style. It's really depending on the best use case.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Something that I really want to highlight from the blog, it's that it's one of the teams in Prime Video amongst many teams, many development teams within the product. And if a set of services always contribute to the one respond, and it's always the same set of resources scaling together, and the performance requirements are pretty much the same, it's managed by a single team, it is actually sometimes worthwhile to see if we can combine them, right?
Yeah, that's right. And you're right in saying that there's no silver bullet solution for an architecture or a requirement. You have to look at what you want to do on case-by-case basis. And sometimes serverless is not the answer. So you have to use traditional EC2 and container services. And in this scenario, they were using a distributed architecture comprised of many different services. And as you said, they face scaling issues because all of them were scaling separately from each other. So it was a good decision to make sure that they are combining them together and using a different service, which is able to then scale much better according to their requirement.
Yeah, and especially as technical account managers, I think it's always great for us to look at these kind of scenarios with customers and say optimizing for cost, but also look at other consideration, such as the engineering effort that's needed, the maintenance that's needed, and observability of this particular use case. And I think in this case, it demonstrated a great win for the team, and that's definitely an architecture that makes sense for them, right?
Yeah, I think you are 100% correct in saying that we have to realize what kind of benefits we are getting from the architecture that we are using. In this case, it was the best decision so that we can save on cost, save on the effort of maintaining and developing new features, as well as making sure that we are able to monitor our systems as well.
Absolutely. All right, so let's move on to the releases. Maya, can we move on to the next slide, please? All right, Saad, what are you bringing us first for this month?
Yeah, sure. So I have to talk about two new releases. The first one is so Amazon GuardDuty is a threat detection tool service that basically continuously monitors your AWS account, and it has added the capability of monitoring your AWS Lambda functions network traffic, which is a big thing for people who are using serverless architecture.
So tell us how our customers are monitoring Lambda traffic before this release.
Yeah. So right now in AWS, there is not a good solution to monitor AWS Lambda network traffic. If you want to monitor what your Lambda function is doing, you have to enable VPC flow logs. You have to use different tools, maybe write additional code, use third-party softwares to see if your function has a malicious piece of code or if it is making calls to different abusive endpoints. So you have to make sure that you are making an effort using different services to monitor those things.
And after this release, do they still need to enable flow logs and all of that very complex type of monitoring stuff before they can actually look at Lambda?
So this Amazon GuardDuty release for AWS Lambda basically allows our customer to enable the threat detection feature, which GuardDuty already provides, and they don't need to enable any VPC flow logs for their Lambda functions. So it does monitor your VPC enabled function as well as Lambda functions who are not in the VPC. And right now it is monitoring the network traffic, but there are expansion plans to include the DNS traffic as well from your Lambda function. So it makes it very easy. You just have to enable the feature and the GuardDuty service will start monitoring. Then you can use the result to automate different actions based on the results.
Right, gotcha. So basically, you write your Lambda code as you would without worrying about all of the detection, and GuardDuty do that for you.
That's true.
Nice, great, thank you. Anything else before we move on to the next one?
Nothing in particular, but just wanted to make sure that this feature is available for our customer to use. So if you're already using GuardDuty, you have to go and enable the monitoring for Lambda function, and then you can start a 30-day free trial. But if you're not using GuardDuty and you start using it now, it will be enabled by default, but you will still get a 30-day free trial period. And then after that, you can start accruing cost for that.
Gotcha. Saad, we have a question from the audience. Is this just for VPC functions?
No, so as I mentioned, this is not just for the VPC functions, which means that you don't have to enable VPC flow logs for the ENIs of your Lambda function. This will also monitor Lambda functions which are not part of the VPC as well.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. All right, so moving on to the next one. Private APIs on AppSync. Tell us about this one.
Yeah. All right. So AppSync, I want to talk about AppSync first very briefly. So AppSync is a fully managed service from AWS, which basically enables developer to create GraphQL APIs. And before this feature, you can only create public APIs, which means that there will be a public endpoint. And if you want to make a call to that endpoint, your client will have to have internet access in order to access that API.
Right. And so with this release, is it do you need to put in like a private APIs on your AppSync and everything flows within the VPC?
Yep. So with this particular release, what you are able to do now is you can create private AppSync APIs. And what it means is that you can restrict access to your API and only the resources in your VPC can access those APIs. And also your resources in your private VPC does not have to have internet access. They can use AWS private link to access the private AppSync APIs. The call goes to AWS private network, and it doesn't go to internet at all.
So it sounds like it solves a lot of issues when deploying something like through firewalls, or opening up security policies for AppSync that were the case before.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, lots of our customer, they have their policies, they have compliances to follow, and they have their VPCs and workloads which needs to be private, which doesn't allow the access for internet-facing endpoints. In case of those particular workloads, this feature allows them to now communicate with the AppSync API and utilize this service from AWS. And just wanted to add, they can also use the private API from their on-premise network, on-premise workload using AWS Direct Connect or site-to-site VPN.
Yeah. Gotcha. Thank you very much. That was, I feel like this is definitely something I can bring to many of my customers who are using GraphQL. All right. No problem. Any closing comments before we move on to the next segment? Speak now or forever be silenced. Okay, well, guess not then. Well, thank you very much, Sat, for coming on. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thanks, Simon.
And we'll bring on Matt to talk about compute and databases.
Thanks, Simon. I've got a closing comment. I just wanted to refer back to the Code Whisperer demo from before and just say that for our DevOps and our system engineers as well that are listening, Code Whisperer works great with Python. So you can go in there and really kick off some of the scripts and some of the daily administrative tasks that we do daily. Graham, I might welcome you in, have a bit of a chat about compute and databases. Welcome back.
Thanks. Let's kick it off.
I wanted to start by talking about some of our newest instances with generative AI. And I must start off too just by saying this is a bit of a new area for me. I haven't used these instances. I've definitely used some of the open source tooling with TensorFlow and PyFlow, but I haven't quite had a chance to deploy them yet on AWS. But I'm really keen I thought we could share with our audience today, just give them a bit more of an insight on what we have released and what might be available from a compute sense.
Yeah, sure. I know we've got the i4G storage optimized instances that are out as well. So these are Graviton 2 processors, giving you better compute price performance per CPU as compared to x86. I also have not tried out the generative AI focused instances. What else have you got for us, Matt?
So we've got the so this month we released the INF2. So they're the instances for built on our AWS Inferentia 2 AI chips. So compared to the first generation, we're talking 4 times more throughput and 10 times lower latency as well. So some pretty big jumps in numbers going from that first generation to second generation.
Yeah, that's really important. The low latency, especially for inference applications, you've got a lot of latency in the inference process, potentially, especially for bigger models. So you don't want any network latency interfering with the customer experience.
Yeah, that's right. And as we just saw with your Code Whisperer demo just before, Graham, we're talking, large language models are real time now. So they're baked into, how we operate and how we work. So any latency reductions are super important.
Yeah, absolutely.
The next one would be our TRN1N instance that we've just recently released. So this one is our instance that are built on our AWS Trainium accelerators. So the big call out for this is obviously this is the network focused. So if you've got a large language model with billions of data points, this is probably one of the instances that you might want to look at. It is built on our EC2 Ultra clusters. And I won't go through all the specifics around the available compute, but there's some pretty big numbers here, as you can expect. With the Ultra clusters, you can consume up to 30,000 compute. You've got lots and lots of memory, and up to 3.4. I'm just looking at some of the stats here. 3.4 petaflops of compute available as well. So some pretty large numbers that you can consume. I kind of just see it as on-demand access to a supercomputer, really, and just factoring that in.
Yeah, I used to work in HPC, and we would be spinning up like C5 16XL instances, and putting together clusters of hundreds and sometimes even thousands of these instances. But the ability to access compute on this scale would have been super helpful.
Super helpful.
How does our Neuron SDK influence all of this? Like, we've got some libraries that interface directly with some of the machine learning libraries that our customers are going to be using. Yeah, did you know more about that one?
I haven't looked too much into the specifics, no, but I mean, we support through some of the open source libraries. I know that with Neuron, you can engage with TensorFlow, PyFlow. I haven't done it yet, so I definitely do not want to sound like I'm advanced in this area. But I do definitely recommend, if you haven't had a chance, have a look at Neuron and see how we can leverage that on AWS.
Yeah, great call out. We've got a question from the audience. Are they available in all regions?
Yes, there's some limitations. So I believe it's not available just yet in China and US Gov, but generally available across the board.
Great, thank you.
Awesome. And then just there's the large number here that I wanted to just call out, but with the TRN1 network instances, there's we are talking 1,600 gigabits per second through our new Elastic Fiber Adapter V2. So some pretty big network numbers as well. As you can appreciate, you're going to need to run that level of compute.
Yep, that'll be really important. And these numbers, where are they relevant? Is it just on the AWS backbone? Where can customers expect to receive that level of performance?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, just we're talking on the backbone between the different ultra cluster nodes.
Yep.
Lambda. So just piggybacking a bit off what Simon and Sad were talking about just before, Lambda's released some new features, and the key one I want to talk about today was around payload streaming. So you might be familiar, Graham, with just the typical client request response invocation model. So
yes.
Kick off the Lambda runs, spawns, does its processing, and gets back to the client. But now with response streaming, functions can now actually send partial responses back to the client as they become ready, which is a pretty big step forward for a lot of real-time workloads.
Is this a bit like opening up a webhook to a Lambda function?
I think so. I'm not sure if it's exactly like a webhook, but to me, it's effectively the same thing.
Yeah, great. Okay, so for customers that need this capability, looking at the announcement, there's quite a lot of regions that are receiving this update. Do you know off chance whether it's going out to like all the generally available regions? Yeah,
that's right. It's going out to all of them.
Yeah, cool. Okay, nice.
Only supported so far on Node.js 14.x and some of the newer runtimes. If you do have an older runtime, now's a pretty good chance or opportunity to get yourself on the latest to tap into some of these new features around response streaming.
Yeah, great. For those in our audience, if you're not using Node.js, you're using a different runtime, let us know. Should we be advocating for perhaps different language support there?
Absolutely. Database. So just a couple I wanted to talk through just before we close, Graham. So Redshift have just recently announced general availability of dynamic data masking.
Yeah, great. So if you've got data in your database that you need to, I guess, put into a test process or some other CI/CD process, but you don't want to have it visible, right? You don't want to have any of your team access. So this is going to be a big one.
Yeah, definitely. From a data security standpoint, I think masking has always been something that infrastructure and engineering teams have always needed to worry about, right? You might want to take a copy or a clone of production, but you don't necessarily want to be bringing in some of that personally identifiable information. So with masking, you can go ahead and in this instance, it looks at policies. It's implemented through the concept of policies, and those policies are going to effectively mask any of the sensitive data that Redshift may be returning to any of the clients.
So what's required then to get started with this? Does this require you to modify the data in the database, or is it being applied as an overlay? How does it work?
Yeah, it's effectively applied as an overlay. So you will just implement a policy that says, in the event that this data set is trying to be returned, go ahead and mask it in the following configuration or in the following way.
Yeah. Okay. Great. What about impact to performance then? Like, is it going to result in additional latency on commands or?
Nothing that I've seen, and nothing that I've run into by testing. So I'm not saying that there won't be a potential performance impact, but I think in this instance, what we'd probably be really focusing on is the data security element, and really making sure that data is protected and doesn't leave.
Yeah. Nice. This is great. Nice to be able to do this on quite a lot of the different database products that we've got.
That's right. Yeah, I've definitely seen a few masking patterns, architectural patterns, and it can always get a little bit tricky, right? You do a replication, you got another service or another system then coming into that database, making some changes before a client gets to it. So this really simplifies that overall process.
Great. I see we've got a comment back for the original Lambda release about payload streaming solving issues, especially returning results greater than the 6 megabyte limit.
Yeah, that's right. I think there's a lot of opportunity here in regards to where Lambda has been adopted, and really looking at some of the response time, especially the response time back to clients for that initial connection, and before the example that I do think about and reflect on would be something like a podcast, like an audio stream, right? You want to give the client enough data to kick off the first 10 seconds. Maybe give the client the image or any notes that you want to send through, and then give yourself a bit more time to stream the full, what might be the 6 meg packet back.
Great, yeah, good idea.
Postgres. So Amazon Aurora now supports Postgres SQL 15. So for anyone who isn't too familiar with Aurora, I think everyone's got a fairly good snapshot these days, but Aurora's our fully managed high-performance database with global scale. With full MySQL and Postgres compatibility as well. So with Postgres 15, there's some pretty major improvements to the database engine around sorting, both in memory and on disk as well. So if you have a data set that's doing lots of sorting, and that you're going to see some improvements there. And some of the other features that Postgres 15 also brings in, there's a lot more flexibility around managing logical replications. So if you want to put data in different spots or different areas, you've got a little bit more fine-grained control. As well, Graham, is around there's an additional feature for JSON logging, for getting that structured logging ingestion into another system.
Okay, great. And Postgres 15 only came out in October last year.
That's right.
It's pretty progressive, and we're expecting Postgres 16 to land later on in 2023.
That's right. I haven't seen the new features that are penciled in for 16. You haven't seen them by any chance, have you?
I haven't, no.
Yeah. So when customers adopt 15, it's straight to 15.2, I believe, is the current point release. But yeah, if you are on a later version of Postgres, definitely recommended to upgrade.
Yeah, absolutely. And put it into the test pipeline at least. Get it testing out early for the upgrades, because you don't want to get caught out by an end of life. Yeah,
that's right. Definitely. Last but not least, I think last month I touched a little bit on RDS Custom for Oracle, I believe, and now this month there's a new release for RDS Custom for SQL Server. Specifically, RDS Custom for SQL Server now supports multi-AZ deployments.
Wow. Okay. So is this like multiple read replicas spanning multiple AZs?
Yeah, that's right. So with so previously you could have RDS Custom for SQL Server, you just couldn't have the multi-AZ deployment itself. So you'd be basically bound to a single AZ. But now, if you do have a legacy or a custom or maybe some commercial off-the-shelf product that requires a bit more fine-grained tuning of the SQL Server database engine, with this now you're not limited to a single AZ. You can go ahead and have the resiliency baked into the multi-AZ for that workload.
So this feels like for our customers using RDS Custom for SQL Server previously, they may not have been comfortable putting it into production. And with this new announcement, we've got higher availability, higher fault tolerance for their databases.
That's right. And maybe just practically, Graham, one of the things that we may have seen or customers may have seen is that they would have just chosen in that instance to just manage their own EC2s, manage their own database engine to effectively give themselves multi-AZ support for their specific commercial off the shelf or some of their legacy platforms. So for this, it really might be an option for them to look at moving away and moving to a fully managed service.
Yeah, nice one.
Awesome. That's it for this month. That was a very, very fun episode. I really enjoyed listening to what you were sharing before, Graham, around AIML and some of the serverless features as well from Simon.
Hey, huge call out to Tom Liu for doing an awesome demo on Code Whisperer as well. That was awesome fun.
Yeah, very high risk, right? A live demo with Code Whisperer. I was very and taking feedback and requests too from listeners. I was just as nervous as I was excited, I think.
I felt like Tom was kind of taken aback when someone asked him to create a DynamoDB table. He's like, "Oh, I've never done this before," and it worked out pretty much flawlessly.
Yeah, that's right.
Well. And he was also picking up that like some of the attributes had been doubled up, so he was doing some live debugging himself before pushing the run button. So yeah, kudos to Tom.
Nice one, Tom. Thank you so much, everyone. We are back next month, but if I don't see you then, have a good weekend. See you, team.
See you, everyone. See you next month.
Bye-bye.